Welcome to my channel. Today we'll meet a legendary outlaw. There are many famous stories about him. He robbed from the rich and gave to the poor, fought with a band of merry men in Sherwood Forest, had a showdown with the Sheriff of Nottingham, and lived to be an old man. We all know this story, or do we? This is the legend of Robin Hood. But who was the real Robin Hood? We're going to travel back to 12th century England to find out what history has to say about Robin Hood. The legend says that Robin Hood was born in Nottinghamshire, in the town of Devotionals, where he lived a life of privilege as a nobleman until he decided to take up arms against the Sheriff of Nottingham. But hold it right there. There is no record of any of this happening. In fact, there's very little record of Robin Hood at all. The first time his name appears in written history is in a 12th century manuscript called the Pipe Rolls. He's listed as Robin Hood, a very common name back then. He was probably a yeoman, a low-ranking officer in charge of a group of soldiers, and like most people at the time, he would have been working the land, paying taxes to the king and trying to make a living. In 1181, King Richard the Lionheart took the throne. Unlike his name suggests, Richard wasn't a big fan of paying his soldiers. He liked to keep their wages in his treasury. So Robin Hood and a few dozen of his fellow soldiers went on strike. They refused to work unless they were paid, so Richard sent out an order to arrest them. Robin Hood was charged with the crime of mutiny, which came with a hefty reward on his head. Now we finally get to the legend. Maybe Robin Hood didn't want to go to jail for something he didn't do, or maybe he was tired of being poor and decided to become an outlaw. Either way, Robin Hood and his merry men fled into the forest. Here they lived off the land and avoided capture by the royal sheriff, collecting taxes for the king. Over time, Robin Hood became a folk hero. People loved the idea of an ordinary guy standing up to a corrupt sheriff. And as more and more people heard his story, it grew larger than life. Soon he wasn't just robbing the sheriff, he was robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. These legends were written down and passed around until we got the version of Robin Hood that we know today. So how much of this is true? Well, we know that Robin Hood was a common name in 12th century England, and there were several Robin Hoods living in Nottinghamshire. There is also some evidence that there was a real outlaw living in Sherwood Forest, but we don't know if his name was really Robin Hood. It's possible that the character of Robin Hood was actually based on several different people, all of whom lived during a time when England was in serious need of an outlaw. After the Black Death, the bubonic plague that killed millions of people swept across Europe and killed 30% of England's population. Things were bad. The economy was in sharp decline and people needed someone to blame. Enter the Sheriff of Nottingham. The position of sheriff was appointed by the king and given to the highest bidder. Most sheriffs were nobles who had no experience running a county. They showed up, collected taxes, then left the administration of justice up to a handful of local officials. As you can imagine, corruption was rampant. Sheriffs grew rich while their counties grew poorer. This created the perfect condition for an outlaw to come along and steal from the rich. Whether or not Robin Hood actually did these things isn't important. What matters is that people wanted him to. Robin Hood represents everything that was lost after the Black Death, a time when England was wealthy and free from disease. He's also a symbol of rebellion, a reminder that it's okay to fight against an oppressive government. As for the legend, it continued to grow long after Robin Hood was gone. In the 14th century, writers began publishing stories about his exploits. They made him a nobleman, gave him a showdown with the Sheriff of Nottingham, and stuck him in Sherwood Forest, which was added to the legend sometime in the 16th century. Today, the legend lives on in books, TV shows, movies, and video games. Some of the best stories use the legend as a jumping-off point to explore new ideas. Take Robin Hood and the Seven Hoods. For example, instead of Sherwood Forest, our hero hides out in the Sherwood Park housing projects. Or how about Robin Hood, Men in Tights? This movie sends up every sword and sandal movie ever made. So the next time you hear the legend of Robin Hood, ask yourself, is it a story about an outlaw who robbed from the rich and gave to the poor? Or is it a story about a corrupt sheriff who had it coming? Thanks for watching. See you next time.